don't forget the youth. But there's somebody else who says there's more people that need to be included, and that's M. Bui on table number 19. I can't read your first name, so perhaps you can just say that for us. Table 19.
Thank you, Minister, and your panel. Now, I wanted to continuously, because it looks as if there is a concern that is very broad and about youth and also the disabled and the women. And I thought that you'll give and share more of those type of experiences with your panel of how do you continuously engage and make them to be able to benefit from some of these programs that you are able to outline here today. Give us a sense so that they are able, they themselves, to know that if ever they go to ISD, they are going to be able to benefit. And what do we do for the disabled, and what do we do for the women? That is what I'm really concerned for, because if you're dealing with issues of transformation, I thought that these are part of the things you'll be able to show that these sectors, this is how they will be able to benefit within those programs.
All right, so we'll get an answer from here and also the ISDA itself.
These three groups are targeted sectors in terms of government policy. I admit that in terms of youth economic aspirations, we've talked much and not done as much. In terms of people with disabilities, we have a long way to go. And I would hope that the ISDA would engage with disabled people, South Africa, DPSA, the government department responsible for people with disabilities, so that we have a program rolling in that regard. Practically in terms of women, we've begun to do something, but we have a long way to go. I mean, if you look at ESCOM, which last year awarded a 5.2 billion rand contract over 5 years to a black woman who supplies one of the ESCOM power stations with fuel, who now has a plant based in Limpopo, and you had that massive announcement by ESCOM, by Transnet, for a 15.5 billion rand contract for 9 black companies that are entering the petroleum space, supplying Transnet with fuel. 5 of those companies are owned by black women. And so in that regard, you know, something tangible, something concrete has begun to be done. If you look at the companies that are led by women that are doing the external and internal audits of some of our state-owned companies, we can and will continue to do more in that space, and I think that the ISDA is poised, well poised, to deal with those particular issues, but particularly to bring people with disabilities on board as major and important stakeholders, bring young people as major and important stakeholders, and ensure that what we've started doing with women can be expanded beyond these 2 state-owned companies, but it can be done by other state-owned companies and by the private sector. Because I think the conversation that we need to have is that it's not only state-owned companies that have a procurement spend. The private sector in South Africa on a daily basis also spends money procuring goods and services. They too need of their own volition to embrace the localization philosophy, so that we can spawn a lot of manufacturing small businesses in South Africa.
Okay. The ISDA representative, Tim?
Yeah.
I mean, Thabiso?
Yes, thanks, Peter. In the board of the ISDA, we have 3 female board members. We've got board member Nkosi, who's a person with disabilities. But in terms of what we're going to do moving forward, we have the categories. The designated groupings have the people with disability, youth, and women. And the program of the ISDA moving forward is to engage all organizations and associations playing in that space to ensure that they make a meaningful input, because the women in the board don't only represent themselves, they represent a category consisting of women-owned companies. The person with disability in the board represents people with disability as a category. So moving forward, we're going to ensure that we engage with the different categories to ensure that they make a meaningful input in the ISDA. But the point that I wanted to mention as well, Chairperson, was that we cannot assume or move from a premise that there are no success stories. There are indeed good stories to be told in terms of what state-owned companies have done with regard to supply development. A lot of companies that have started from nothing today are sitting at 500 million rand revenue per annum, aided, assisted, incubated by the state-owned companies. So a lot of work has been done, and what we as the ISDA have to do is to ensure that we multiply that. We ensure that we have more of those entrepreneurs, more of those industrialists. We give them opportunity, we give them a voice, and ensure that this movement grows. And as it grows, it takes with it the Republic of South Africa Incorporated. So there are a lot of good stories to be told. And in the hall today, there are people who are beneficiaries of those processes, who have joined us today to tell their own stories. So we can engage after the formal session. They're here. We can have engagements with them, and they can tell you how they've done it. But they couldn't have done it without the support of state-owned companies, and certainly without the support of one Malusi Gigaba, who has done a lot of work in terms of driving the supply development movement. For, as ISDA, we are also a creation of his vigor and understanding and drive to get South Africa Incorporated up and about.
All right, whilst you're still there, one question. We're talking about state-owned enterprises here, we're talking about national departments, but I keep coming in my mind to that gentleman over there who says, look, a lot of supply and purchase happens at the municipal level. And one of the challenges that these suppliers have is, if I don't know someone in the municipality, if I'm not a friend of someone, if I don't have the right surname, I'm going to get left out of this whole equation. What is your association going to do to help level the playing field so that everybody has a chance, and not just those that are politically connected and have got the right color T-shirts?
I think the yellow T-shirts are very striking indeed. But the engagements moving forward that we're going to have with provincial governments as well as local governments are important, and will bring about the involvement of entrepreneurs and small businesses at all levels. We are going to have those engagements and deal with issues around supply development with local municipalities. But we also have to deal with issues of procurement. Some of the current procurement framework does not allow for supply development at a local level. So those are some of the engagements, positive engagements, that we are going to have with government at all tiers when we roll out the road shows together with the Department of Public Enterprises.
Just to chip in quickly, one of the proposals is that, which the President has spoken about, is that over the next 5 years, the tendering procedures are going to be changed, so that in order to eliminate corruption, nepotism, and all of these other negative things, by centralizing the tendering system, creating a central tender board that's going to deal with all of the tenders. And I think it's going to respond to that issue, that if you don't know public servants so-and-so or politicians so-and-so and can't grease their hands, therefore you have no chance at a business opportunity. So I think that's going to address that particular concern. And by centralizing the tendering system, we're not talking about creating a national central tender board so that even the local procurement needs are sourced from national. We're talking about centralizing the tendering system right throughout the tiers of government to ensure that there are streamlined processes that eliminate corruption and nepotism.
All right. Very briefly, Tim, how do we shift from this natural instinct just to comply with an actual commitment by companies such as yours, private sector, everybody, to get onto the same page, that it's not just about ticking off that list or that requirement, but that there is a reason to do what we're doing?
Listen, I think smart companies are going to realize that getting ahead of this and developing this as a core competency, and what I mean by this is localization, industrialization, skills development, building a sustainable business in country. I think smart companies are going to realize that that gives them a competitive advantage, and that we should not be pulled along, just as you said, ticking the boxes, doing the minimal requirements, but getting ahead of that. And I think as part of that, multinationals, we have to partner with government, both at the national and local level, towards working towards the objectives of skills development, localization, supplier development, because it's in our mutual interest.
All right. Well, on that note, I think that's where we can end this conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, Minister of Public Enterprises, Minister Malusi Gigaba, His Excellency, the Ambassador from Japan to South Africa, Ambassador Yutaka Yoshizawa, and Tim Schweikert, President and CEO of GE South Africa. Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us and your time. We appreciate it. Thank you.